The Grand Assembly Hall floated in the void between three star systems, a massive structure built from crystallized starlight and reinforced with gravity fields that defied physics. Inside, representatives from 200 civilizations gathered for what many considered a routine vote. Ambassador Maya Rodriguez stood in the designated zone for junior species, her simple gray uniform a stark contrast to the elaborate robes and biosuits worn by the senior races around her. Maya had served as Earth's primary ambassador for 12 years. She had learned 17 alien languages, mastered the art of multidimensional diplomacy, and helped broker peace between species that had forgotten why they started fighting. Her brown eyes held the weight of responsibility as she watched the Vorthak delegation prepare their statement. The Vorthak were beautiful in their alien way, with translucent skin that showed their internal light patterns and 4 arms that moved with liquid grace. Supreme Chancellor Krex of the Vorthak Empire stood at the center podium. His species had discovered faster-than-light travel when Earth's ancestors were still learning to use bronze tools. The respect he commanded was absolute, his voice carrying the authority of 20,000 years of civilization. The human petition for senior membership in the Galactic Assembly will now be considered, Krex announced, his translation device converting his harmonic tones into hundreds of different languages simultaneously. Ambassador Rodriguez, you may present your case. Maya walked to the speaking circle, feeling the weight of billions of human souls watching through quantum relays. She had practiced this speech 1,000 times, but now, looking at the dismissive expressions on alien faces, she knew exactly how this would end. Honored representatives, Maya began, her voice steady and clear. Humanity requests recognition as a senior species with full voting rights in matters of galactic governance. We base this request on our contributions over the past 73 years since first contact. A ripple of what Maya recognized as amusement passed through the Zalathi delegation. Their crystalline bodies chimed softly, a sound that meant laughter in their culture. Ambassador Thys of the Zalathi stood without waiting for permission to speak. 73 years, Thys repeated, his faceted form catching the light. The Zalathi have guided younger species for 50,000 years. What could humans possibly offer that we have not already perfected? Maya remained calm. In those 73 years, human engineers have increased the efficiency of galactic power grids by 40%. Human doctors have cured 12 diseases that plagued multiple species for millennia. Human programmers have created translation algorithms that allow incompatible technologies to work together seamlessly. Technical contributions, Supreme Chancellor Krex interrupted, waving one of his 4 arms dismissively. Yes, humans are clever with tools, but leadership requires more than cleverness. It requires wisdom, patience, and the long view of history that only comes with age. The Morvac Collective's representative, a hive mind entity speaking through dozens of bodies simultaneously, added their voice to the discussion. Humans still wage wars among themselves. They have not achieved unity even on their own world. How can they guide others when they cannot guide themselves? Maya had expected this argument. Earth's nations still had disagreements, sometimes violent ones. But she also knew something these ancient races had forgotten, that conflict, properly managed, could drive innovation and growth in ways that peaceful stagnation never could. Humanity's diversity is our strength, Maya said. Our different perspectives allow us to see problems from angles that unified thought cannot achieve. This is why human solutions often work where traditional approaches fail. She pulled up holographic displays showing human contributions. The Mars syndrome cure that had saved the Threnac species from extinction, the quantum stabilizers that prevented the Gorvani homeworld sun from going nova, the diplomatic framework that ended the 1,000-year war between the Kalari and the Nexus. But the senior species were not really looking at the evidence. They had made their decision before she even started speaking. Maya could see it in their body language, in the way they whispered to each other in frequencies they thought humans could not detect. She heard every word through the enhanced audio implants that Dr. Chen had developed, technology the aliens did not even know existed. High Arbiter Zelex of the Corvani hegemony stood next. The Corvani were among the oldest races in the galaxy, their empire spanning 10,000 star systems. Zelex's obsidian form towered 3 meters tall, his voice carrying the weight of eons. The human species shows promise, Zelek said, his tone patronizing. In perhaps 5 or 10,000 years, when you have matured beyond your current primitive state, we will reconsider your petition. Until then, you should be grateful for the junior status you have been granted. Many species wait millennia for such an honor. Maya felt something inside her shift. Not anger exactly, but a cold clarity that came from finally understanding where humanity truly stood in the galaxy's hierarchy. They would never be equals here. No matter what humans achieved, no matter how many problems they solved or lives they saved, they would always be the children at the adults' table. She thought about Captain Jennifer Wu, who had spent the last 5 years protecting shipping lanes from pirates, while the Vorthak fleet stayed safely in defended space. She thought about Dr. James Park, who had given up his position at Earth's finest hospital to treat refugees from wars that the senior species refused to prevent. She thought about engineer Carlos Mendez, who had redesigned half the galaxy's infrastructure to be more efficient, only to watch alien politicians take credit for his work. "I understand," Maya said quietly. "Shall we proceed to the vote?" The formal process was almost insulting in its brevity. Each senior species voted in order of their seniority. The Corvani voted no. The Vorthak voted no. The Zelathi voted no. One by one, every single senior species rejected humanity's petition. Not one abstention, not one voice of support. The message was clear. Humanity was not wanted at the leadership table. "The vote is unanimous," Supreme Chancellor Krex announced. "Humanity's petition for senior status is denied. You will retain your junior membership with advisory privileges only." Maya nodded slowly. She had one more duty to perform, one that she had hoped would not be necessary. From her pocket, she pulled out a small device, a quantum communicator that connected directly to Earth's Central Command. She pressed it once, sending a predetermined signal that would change everything. "Ambassador Rodriguez acknowledges the Assembly's decision," Maya said formally. "In light of this vote, I am authorized to announce that Earth and all human colonies are withdrawing from the Galactic Assembly, effective immediately." The hall went silent. Even the constant background hum of life support systems seemed to pause. Maya continued, her voice carrying clearly through the shocked atmosphere. "All human personnel will be recalled from their positions across the galaxy. All human technology currently in use by member species will be deactivated at the end of current contract periods. All human medical facilities will close. All human trade routes will be terminated. All human security forces will return to Earth space." Chaos erupted. Representatives stood, shouting in 100 languages. The translation systems struggled to keep up with the sudden explosion of voices. Supreme Chancellor Krex raised all 4 arms for silence, his light patterns flashing in what Maya recognized as genuine alarm. "Ambassador, this is a drastic overreaction," Krex said. "Surely we can discuss alternative arrangements. Humanity benefits greatly from Assembly membership. As the Assembly has made clear, humanity is too young and primitive for equal partnership," Maya replied. "We accept your judgment. We will focus on our own development, as you suggest. Perhaps in 5 or 10,000 years, we will be mature enough to rejoin galactic society." High Arbiter Zelix moved forward, his massive form creating shadows across the hall. "You cannot simply withdraw. There are treaties, obligations, contracts that bind your species to the Assembly, all of which include termination clauses that we will honor completely," Maya said. "Humanity has always respected the rule of law. We will fulfill every obligation, complete every contract, and then we will leave." She turned to go but stopped at the door to deliver her final message. "The Assembly should know that humanity has been protecting this galaxy from threats you do not even know exist. When we leave, that protection leaves with us. I hope for all your sakes that your ancient wisdom is enough to handle what comes next." As Maya walked out of the Grand Assembly Hall, she could hear the arguments beginning behind her. Some representatives were demanding immediate action to stop the human withdrawal. Others were insisting that humanity was bluffing, that they would never actually leave. They would learn soon enough that when humanity made a decision, they followed through completely. The great evacuation was about to begin, and the galaxy would discover exactly how much they had depended on the species they had just rejected. Maya felt no satisfaction in this knowledge, only a deep sadness for what could have been. The stars continued their eternal dance, indifferent to the politics of the tiny beings that moved between them. But soon those stars would seem a little dimmer, a little more dangerous, without humanity standing watch in the darkness. The empty chairs, the evacuation began at midnight, Earth Standard Time. Exactly 72 hours after Maya Rodriguez walked out of the Grand Assembly Hall. Across 10,000 worlds, human personnel received the same message. Operation Homecoming is now active. Report to your designated evacuation points within 48 hours. On Kepler Station 9, the busiest trade hub in the Vorthak Empire, Chief Engineer Robert Nash powered down his workstation for the last time. He had maintained the station's fusion reactors for 15 years, keeping them running at efficiency levels that Vorthak engineers claimed were theoretically impossible. The reactors were human-designed, a gift from Earth during the early days of cooperation. Now, as Robert initiated the shutdown protocols, he wondered how long it would take the Vorthak to realize they had never truly understood how the technology worked. Station Commander Vex arrived as Robert was packing his tools. The Vorthak's translucent skin flickered with patterns of distress. "Chief Nash, this evacuation order must be a misunderstanding. The station cannot operate without you." Robert sealed his tool case with practiced efficiency. "I've left detailed manuals, Commander. Everything your engineers need to know is documented." "But the quantum regulation matrices," Vex protested, his forearms gesturing frantically. "The harmonic stabilizers, the plasma flow controllers. These systems require constant adjustment." "They require understanding," Robert corrected gently. "I've tried to teach your people for years, but they always said human methods were too unconventional. Maybe now they'll be motivated to learn." Similar scenes played out across the galaxy. On the agricultural world of Theros, Dr. Emily Chang closed her xenobiology research center. She had developed crops that could feed 12 different species from the same soil, solving hunger problems that had plagued frontier colonies for centuries. The Zalathi administrators who came to stop her found only empty laboratories and detailed research notes they could not comprehend. The medical crisis hit first and hardest. Human doctors had specialized in interspecies medicine, a field most aliens found too complex and unprofitable. When Dr. David Kim left the Morvac Collective's primary hospital, he took with him the knowledge of how to perform surgery on 17 different types of alien physiology. The hospital had relied on him for their most difficult cases, the ones where different species biologies interacted in unexpected ways. "You're condemning innocent beings to death," accused Administrator Morvek. The collective speaking through 20 bodies simultaneously. David paused in packing his surgical instruments. "I offered to train your doctors for years. The Medical Council said human techniques were too risky, too unconventional. They preferred traditional methods." "Traditional methods don't work for hybrid cases," Morvek admitted. "Then maybe you should have thought of that before voting against humanity's membership," David replied. "I've uploaded all my research to your medical database. Good luck figuring it out." The transportation network collapsed next. Humans had revolutionized galactic logistics with something they called dynamic routing, a system that predicted problems before they occurred and adjusted shipping paths accordingly. When logistics coordinator Jessica Anderson left her post at the Corvani Trade Nexus, she disabled the proprietary algorithms that had kept goods flowing smoothly for 2 decades. High Arbiter Zelix himself came to her office as she was leaving. His obsidian form filled the doorway, blocking her exit. "This is economic warfare, Coordinator Anderson. Trillions of credits worth of goods will be delayed or lost." Jessica met his gaze without flinching. "The Corvani insisted that human economic theories were primitive, remember? You said our understanding of trade was limited by our short lifespans. This is your chance to prove your superior methods work better." "You know they don't," Zelix said quietly. "Your systems increased efficiency by 60%. "Then you should have voted differently," Jessica replied, stepping around the massive alien. "The old systems are still there. They worked for thousands of years before humans arrived. I'm sure they'll work again." The security situation deteriorated rapidly. Human patrol fleets had taken on the dangerous jobs that other species avoided. They hunted pirates in unstable regions of space, cleared asteroid fields of ancient mines, and monitored the borders where unknown threats might emerge. Captain Sarah Mitchell commanded the last human patrol fleet in the outer reaches, a region where space itself was unstable and navigation required instincts that couldn't be programmed into computers. Her flotilla of 12 ships had protected civilian traffic for 8 years, losing only 3 vessels to the bizarre phenomena that made the outer reaches so dangerous. As she prepared to leave, urgent messages flooded her communication array. Merchant captains begged her to stay. Colonial administrators offered triple hazard pay. Even the pirates she had spent years fighting sent messages asking her to reconsider. "The void storms are coming," one pirate captain warned. "Without human patrols, nothing will survive the season." Sarah knew about the void storms, massive distortions in space-time that appeared every 3 years like cosmic hurricanes. Humans had developed techniques to predict and navigate them, methods that required a type of intuitive thinking that other species found impossible to learn. She sent a final broadcast to all ships in the region. "Human patrol fleet withdrawing in 12 hours. Seek shelter in stable space." Void storm protocols have been published on all public channels. May fortune favor you. The most catastrophic loss was hidden from public view. For decades, humans had maintained secret monitoring stations around ancient derelict ships and abandoned structures throughout the galaxy. These relics of dead civilizations contained technology that was either priceless or apocalyptic, depending on who found it. Human agents trained in both archaeology and combat had prevented dozens of disasters by ensuring these sites remained undisturbed. Agent Marcus Chen was the last to leave his post, a monitoring station hidden in an asteroid near an ancient battleship the size of a small moon. The ship had been dormant for 1,000,000 years, but Marcus knew it was merely sleeping. Human scientists had detected power signatures deep within its hull, systems waiting for the right signal to reactivate. He uploaded his final report to Earth Command. Omega Site 7 secured for evacuation. Proximity sensors indicate no activity for past 30 days. Recommend extreme caution if anyone approaches. The ship's AI is still active, just dormant. Do not attempt to board under any circumstances. Marcus knew the warning would be ignored. Some ambitious salvage crew or military expedition would eventually try to claim the ancient technology. They would not understand the danger until it was too late. But that was no longer humanity's problem. On Vorthak Prime, Supreme Chancellor Krex convened an emergency session of the Inner Council. The reports were beyond alarming. Critical infrastructure was failing across the Empire. Trade routes were backing up with shipments delayed by weeks. Medical emergencies that would have been routine were becoming fatal. And, most disturbing of all, long-range sensors were detecting unusual activity in regions that humans had mysteriously insisted on patrolling. "Perhaps we acted hastily," suggested Councillor Thyman, her light patterns dim with worry. "The humans have integrated themselves into our civilization more deeply than we realized. They did this deliberately," accused Security Chief Rex. "They made us dependent on them, knowing they could use it as leverage." "No," Krex said quietly, studying the reports. "We made ourselves dependent on them. We took their contributions while denying them respect. We accepted their solutions while calling them primitive. We let them handle the dangerous jobs while excluding them from decision-making." The Zalathi ambassador's crystalline form chimed in harmony, a sound of deep concern. "Our analysis shows complete system collapse in several sectors within 3 months if current trends continue. We need the humans back." "They won't come back," Krex said with certainty. Ambassador Rodriguez was very clear. "We had our chance, and we chose our ancient pride over practical partnership." Across the galaxy, the empty chairs where humans once sat became symbols of absence that echoed through civilization. Conference rooms where human negotiators had brokered impossible deals sat silent. Laboratories where human scientists had made breakthrough discoveries gathered dust. Hospital wards where human doctors had performed miracles closed their doors. The junior species watched the chaos with growing concern. They had always been told that the senior species knew best, that their ancient wisdom guided the galaxy toward prosperity. But now they saw these mighty civilizations struggling to perform tasks that humans had handled effortlessly. The Canary, a species that had achieved spaceflight only 20 years ago, sent a secret message to Earth. "We see what you did for the galaxy. We see what they threw away. If you're building something new, we want to be part of it." They would not be the last to reach out to humanity's new path. The Shadow Fleet 6 months after the human exodus, Deep Space Monitoring Station Zalathi 7 detected an energy signature that should not exist. The lone technician on duty, a young Zelathi named Thais Minor, stared at his screens in confusion. According to his instruments, something massive was moving through the void between galaxies, something that had been dormant for longer than most civilizations had existed. The signature matched entries in the restricted archives, files that required maximum security clearance to access. Thais Minor didn't have that clearance, but the automated systems were already broadcasting emergency alerts to every military command in the galaxy. Within minutes, his quiet monitoring station became the focus of panicked attention from the highest levels of government. The object was a ship, though calling it that seemed inadequate. It stretched 8 kilometers from end to end, a twisted amalgamation of technologies that predated any known civilization. Its hull was covered in geometric patterns that hurt to look at directly, as if the ship existed in more dimensions than normal space allowed. It moved with deliberate purpose toward the galactic core, ignoring the laws of physics that should have made its acceleration impossible. Supreme Chancellor Krex stood in the Vorthak Empire's military command center, watching the tactical display with growing dread. Around him, the greatest military minds of his species argued about response protocols, but he knew their debates were pointless. He had seen this class of vessel before, in human reports that his advisors had dismissed as paranoid speculation. "It's a harvester," he said quietly, silencing the room. "The humans warned us about them 3 years ago." Ambassador Rodriguez personally delivered a report about dormant threats in deep space. "We filed it under primitive fears and ignored it. The harvester's purpose became clear when it encountered its first inhabited system. The agricultural world of Bloom Gardens, home to 8 billion souls, simply ceased to exist. The harvester fired no weapons, deployed no fighters. It merely passed through the system, and where a thriving world had been, only cosmic dust remained. The planet had been disassembled at the molecular level, converted into raw materials that the harvester absorbed into its ever-growing mass. Admiral Korax of the Combined Fleet marshaled every available warship, creating the largest military force in recorded history. 3,000 vessels from 50 different species formed a battle line that stretched across an entire star system. Their combined firepower could crack moons and destabilize stars. The harvester treated them like insects. Beam weapons that should have vaporized mountains simply dispersed against its shields. Antimatter torpedoes detonated harmlessly against hull armor that seemed to exist partially outside normal space. When the harvester finally responded, it was with weapons that defied understanding. Ships didn't explode or break apart. They simply stopped existing, erased from reality as if they had never been built. In 12 minutes, the combined fleet was reduced to scattered debris and emergency beacons. Admiral Korax's final transmission was a single word: "Run." High Arbiter Zelix of the Corvani hegemony accessed the restricted files with his maximum clearance, finding the human reports that had been buried in bureaucratic archives. The documents were comprehensive and terrifying. Humanity had spent decades studying ancient ruins and derelict technology, piecing together the history of civilizations that had risen and fallen before the current galactic order existed. The Aisho harvesters were automated systems left behind by something the humans called the predecessors. These ancient machines had one purpose: to prevent younger civilizations from advancing beyond certain technological thresholds. When a species grew too powerful, too ambitious, the harvesters would activate and reduce them to cosmic dust, resetting the galactic clock. The human report included defensive strategies, weapon modifications, and shield configurations that might survive harvester attacks, but all of them required technologies and techniques that only humans had developed. More importantly, the report revealed that humanity had been actively hunting dormant harvesters, destroying them before they could activate. "We've been fools," Zelix said to his council. "The humans weren't paranoid. They were protecting us from threats we refused to acknowledge." The Morvac Collective, speaking through 1,000 voices, asked the question everyone was thinking: can we recall the humans? Offer them whatever they want? "I've been trying," Krex admitted. "Every communication to Earth goes unanswered." "They're not refusing our calls. They're simply not receiving them. It's as if human space has been cut off from the rest of the galaxy." The truth was more complex. Humanity had not cut themselves off. They had evolved beyond the galactic communication network. While alien civilizations sent messages through subspace, humans had developed quantum entanglement communicators that operated instantaneously across any distance. They were watching the galaxy's crisis unfold, but they felt no obligation to intervene. On Earth, Admiral Chen stood in the Strategic Command Center, surrounded by holographic displays showing the Harvester's progression. Her staff officers waited for orders, but she remained silent, watching the ancient machine systematically destroy worlds that had once looked down on humanity. 15 billion dead so far, reported Commander Torres. The Harvester is accelerating toward the core worlds. At current rate, it will reach Vorthak Prime in 8 days. And then? Admiral Chen asked. Based on our models, complete galactic civilization collapse within 6 months. The Harvester will trigger a cascade effect. Once one is fully active, others will begin waking up. We've detected at least 12 dormant signatures beginning power-up sequences. Captain Sarah Mitchell, recently returned from her patrol duties, studied the tactical display. We could stop it. The new fleet has weapons specifically designed for Harvester-class threats. Yes, we could, Admiral Chen agreed. But should we? They voted unanimously that humanity was too primitive, too young to be trusted with galactic security. Perhaps they should handle this threat with their ancient wisdom. The debate that followed would determine the fate of trillions. Some officers argued for immediate intervention, citing humanitarian obligations. Others insisted that humanity owed nothing to species that had rejected them. The discussion continued for hours, but Admiral Chen had already made her decision. She was simply waiting for the right moment. That moment came when long-range sensors detected something unexpected. 3 ships, small and desperately overcrowded, were fleeing toward human space. They were not from the senior species, but from the Canari, the young race that had reached out to humanity months earlier. Their vessels were primitive, barely capable of faster-than-light travel, but they carried 2 million refugees who had chosen to risk everything rather than wait for death. Open a corridor, Admiral Chen ordered. Bring them in safely. As human ships moved to escort the Canari refugees, more signals appeared on the sensors. Other junior species were following the Canari example, fleeing toward human space in whatever vessels they could find. The Threnari, the Dolmen, the Igari, all young races that the senior species had deemed unworthy of respect. Interesting, Admiral Chen mused. It seems we're not the only ones who were tired of being treated as children. The Harvester, meanwhile, had encountered something unexpected. A small station in its path refused to move, refused to die. It was one of the secret human monitoring posts that should have been evacuated months ago. But Agent Marcus Chen had never left. He had stayed behind, knowing this moment would come. Marcus stood in the station's control room, looking at the approaching monster that dwarfed his tiny outpost. He could have fled, but someone needed to send a message. Someone needed to show the galaxy that humans did not abandon their posts out of fear. He activated every sensor array, every recording device, every transmitter on the station. Then he uploaded everything to both the galactic network and Earth's quantum communicators. The galaxy would witness what happened next. The Harvester's weapons charged, preparing to erase the station from existence. But Marcus had one surprise left. He activated an experimental device that humans had developed in secret, something they called a reality anchor. For just a moment, it would force the Harvester to exist entirely in normal space, making it vulnerable to conventional weapons. Marcus knew it would only last seconds before the device overloaded and his station was destroyed. But those seconds would provide invaluable data to Earth scientists. His sacrifice would not stop this Harvester, but it might help stop the next one. As the station exploded in a flash of light that briefly outshone the nearest star, every sensor in the galaxy recorded something impossible. For just an instant, the Harvester had stumbled, its inexorable advance interrupted by one human and one small station. The message was clear. Humans did not run from monsters. They stood their ground, even when standing meant certain death. The price of pride. The quantum wake from Marcus Chen's sacrifice rippled across space, carrying data that Earth scientists immediately began analyzing. In the Strategic Command Center, Admiral Chen watched the readings with grim satisfaction. Marcus had proven the theory correct. The Harvesters could be forced into normal space, making them vulnerable to weapons that could actually hurt them. 7 days remained before the Harvester reached Vorthak Prime. The galactic capital's 20 billion inhabitants were attempting evacuation, but there weren't enough ships, enough time, or enough places to run. The senior species' proud fleets gathered for a last stand they knew would fail. Supreme Chancellor Krex broadcast a final, desperate message on all frequencies. To any human vessels receiving this transmission, the Galactic Assembly formally apologizes for our arrogance. We were wrong. We need your help. Please, in the name of mercy, save our people. For 12 hours there was no response. Then, space itself seemed to tear open around Vorthak Prime. Ships emerged from quantum tunnels that shouldn't exist, using a method of travel that violated every known law of physics. The human fleet had arrived, but these were not the vessels that had left the galaxy 6 months ago. The new ships defied classification. They seemed to be grown rather than built, their hulls flowing like liquid metal, while maintaining perfect structural integrity. Each vessel was unique, adapted to its crew's specific needs and capabilities. They moved through space as if distance was merely a suggestion, appearing and disappearing at will. Admiral Chen's flagship, the United Earthship Perseverance, materialized directly between Vorthak Prime and the approaching Harvester. It was smaller than the ancient monster, but radiated power that made nearby ships' sensors overload. The hull displayed equations and formulaic patterns that actually altered local space-time, creating a bubble of reality where human rules applied. Galactic Assembly vessels. This is Admiral Chen of the Earth Defense Force. Clear the battle zone immediately. Move all ships beyond the third planetary orbit. You have 10 minutes to comply. The alien fleet scattered without argument. They had seen what happened to those who stood against the Harvester, and if humanity had a different plan, they were willing to try anything. The human fleet deployed in a formation that made no tactical sense to alien observers. Ships positioned themselves at seemingly random points in space, some facing the Harvester. Others turned away, some spinning slowly on their axes. It looked like chaos, but there was a pattern hidden in the randomness, a logic that only became clear when they acted. All ships, initialize reality anchors on my mark, Admiral Chen commanded. Remember, we get one shot at this. Make markers proud. 200 human vessels activated their reality anchors simultaneously. The effect was not subtle. Space itself seemed to crystallize around the Harvester, forcing the ancient machine fully into normal dimensions. Its hull, which had seemed invulnerable, suddenly showed its true nature. A patchwork of technologies stolen from 1,000 dead civilizations, held together by physics that shouldn't work. Fire everything, Admiral Chen ordered. The human attack was unlike anything in military history. Each ship fired weapons specifically designed to exploit weaknesses in the Harvester's construction. Gravity bombs that created miniature black holes. Chrono-torpedoes that aged sections of the hull 1,000,000 years in seconds. Quantum destabilizers that made atoms forget how to bond with each other. Weapons that turned matter into light, light into gravity, gravity into nothing. The Harvester fought back with the fury of a wounded god. Beams of pure entropy deleted human ships from existence. Waves of destructive force that could shatter planets swept through the fleet. But for every human ship destroyed, 2 more seemed to take its place, quantum jumping in from positions throughout the galaxy. The battle raged for 3 hours, a light show visible from half the galaxy. The Harvester, which had seemed unstoppable, began to slow. Sections of its hull flickered between dimensions, unable to maintain cohesion. Its weapons fired erratically, sometimes hitting nothing, sometimes hitting itself. Then Captain Sarah Mitchell did something insane, even by human standards. She piloted her ship directly into one of the gaps in the Harvester's hull, disappearing inside the ancient monster. For 30 seconds nothing happened. Then explosions began rippling through the Harvester from within, each blast larger than the last. Sarah's voice crackled over the communication channel. Reality anchor overloading. Core breach in 10 seconds. All ships clear minimum safe distance. The human fleet scattered instantly, quantum jumping away as the Harvester began its death throes. The ancient machine tried to phase out of normal space, but Sarah's sacrifice had damaged something fundamental in its construction. It was trapped, dying, and angry. The explosion, when it came, was visible from Earth with naked eyes. The Harvester didn't just explode. It unraveled, each component returning to its original state before the predecessors had corrupted it. Metal became ore, energy became light, and the synthetic intelligence that had driven it simply ceased, finally free from its eternal mission of destruction. In the aftermath, as debris cooled and space began to heal from the violence done to it, Admiral Chen opened a channel to the Galactic Assembly. "The immediate threat has been neutralized," she announced. "Our sensors detect 11 more harvesters beginning activation sequences. Earth Defense Force is prepared to engage them, but we will do so on our terms." Supreme Chancellor Krex responded immediately. "Anything. The galaxy will agree to any terms you set." "No," Admiral Chen said firmly. "The galaxy will not. The old Galactic Assembly is dissolved as of this moment. The senior species system has failed. Your ancient wisdom couldn't protect you from an ancient threat. Your pride nearly cost trillions of lives." She paused, letting the weight of her words sink in. "Humanity is forming a new alliance, the United Systems Coalition, where every species has equal voice regardless of age or technological advancement, where contribution matters more than tradition, where merit outweighs seniority. The Canary, Threnari, and 8 other young species have already joined. You are welcome to apply for membership, but you will enter as equals, not as leaders." High Arbiter Zelix's obsidian form appeared on the communication screen. "You cannot simply dissolve the Galactic Assembly. We have governed for millennia. And in those millennia, how many young species did you dismiss? How many warnings did you ignore? How many innovations did you reject because they came from races you deemed primitive?" Admiral Chen's voice was calm but unforgiving. "The harvesters are not the only threat out there. The human monitoring stations have detected 17 other varieties of ancient weapons, dormant plagues, and expanding anomalies that threaten all life. We've been quietly dealing with them while you debated trade routes." The revelation stunned the assembled representatives. Humanity hadn't just been contributing to galactic society. They had been secretly protecting it from threats the senior species didn't even know existed. "Why?" Krex asked. "Why protect us when we gave you nothing but disrespect?" "Because that's what humans do," Admiral Chen replied. "We protect those who need protection, even when they don't deserve it. But we're done doing it from the shadows. The new coalition will face these threats openly, with shared knowledge and combined strength. Every species contributing what they can, regardless of how long they've been in space." The Morvac Collective spoke through all their bodies at once. "And if we refuse, if we maintain our old systems, then you face the remaining harvesters alone," Admiral Chen said simply. "Earth will protect coalition members. Others must protect themselves." The choice was no choice at all. Over the following days, every species in the galaxy applied for membership in the United Systems Coalition. The mighty Vorthak Empire, the ancient Corvani hegemony, the proud Zelathi Confederation, all humbled themselves before the species they had dismissed as children. But humanity didn't humiliate them. The application process was fair, focused on what each species could contribute, rather than punishing them for past arrogance. The Vorthak's administrative expertise was welcomed. The Corvani's vast libraries were valued. The Zelathi's artistic traditions were celebrated. The old hierarchies crumbled, replaced by cooperative councils, where a Canary engineer's voice carried as much weight as a Vorthak administrator's, where human creativity merged with alien wisdom to create solutions neither could achieve alone. 3 months later, when the second harvester awakened, the United Systems Coalition was ready. The battle lasted only 30 minutes, with casualties less than 1/10 of the first encounter. By the time the third harvester activated, the Coalition had developed automated defense platforms that could engage them without risking lives. Maya Rodriguez, now Secretary General of the Coalition, stood in the new assembly hall built on neutral ground between 3 galaxies. Around her, representatives from 200 species worked together without the artificial divisions of senior and junior membership. "The old way failed because it confused age with wisdom," she said during the Coalition's first anniversary celebration. "It mistook tradition for truth. The senior species weren't evil, just trapped by their own success. They had been dominant for so long, they forgot that dominance without growth leads to stagnation." Supreme Chancellor Krex, now simply Representative Krex of the Vorthak delegation, stood to respond. His light patterns showed humility, a color combination that hadn't been seen in his species for millennia. "Humanity taught us that survival requires adaptation," he said. "That young species bring innovation, while older ones provide stability. That true strength comes from combining different perspectives, not from enforcing uniformity." The transformation was complete. The galaxy that had once rejected humanity now followed their lead, not through force or manipulation, but through demonstrated competence and inclusive vision. The throne that humanity had been denied was replaced by a round table where everyone had equal seats. In deep space, the monitoring stations continued their watch. Human and alien crews worked side by side, scanning for the next ancient threat, the next challenge that would require all species working together to overcome. They found plenty. The universe, it turned out, was full of dangers that didn't care about the age of civilizations or the pride of empires, but it was also full of opportunities for those brave enough to see them. Under coalition guidance, technology advanced faster than it had in millennia. Medical breakthroughs saved billions. Agricultural innovations ended hunger on 1,000 worlds. Energy solutions powered civilizations without destroying planets. The junior species, freed from artificial limitations, contributed innovations that amazed even humanity. The senior species, humbled but not broken, provided wisdom tempered by hard-learned lessons about pride and cooperation. Admiral Chen retired to Earth, spending her final years teaching at the Coalition Military Academy, where students from every species learned not just tactics, but philosophy. Her final lecture, recorded for posterity, contained the words that would define the Coalition for generations. "Power isn't about age or technology or military might. Real power is the ability to protect those who cannot protect themselves, to lift others up rather than hold them down, to face the darkness with courage, knowing that you stand not alone but with allies who chose to stand with you." Humanity turned its back on the galaxy, not out of spite, but out of necessity. Sometimes you must walk away from those who refuse to see you as equals. But when they finally understood, when they truly saw us, we returned. Not as conquerors, but as partners. That is the human way. That is now the coalition way. The stars continued their eternal dance, indifferent to the small beings moving between them. But those beings were no longer small in spirit. They had learned that survival in a hostile universe required not just strength but cooperation, not just wisdom but innovation, not just pride but humility. The galaxy had begged for humanity's return and received something far greater, a future where every species, regardless of age or origin, could contribute to the endless story of survival and growth among the stars. The price of pride had been paid in full, and from its ashes something magnificent had grown.